from the Positude shows. Tonight's show is a Positude PowWow, and I'm thrilled to have on tonight as my guest Dr. Aaron Maverick Judkins, who's an archaeologist, author, speaker. He's actually many things. In 2015, he actually produced a movie called Finding Noah, which was a documentary in search of Noah's Ark. He climbed 17,000 feet to the summit of Mount Ararat in eastern Turkey. And in 2012, he did a movie called Hidden Mount, The Lost Lunas Mystery Stone. He's written 4 books, including Alien Agenda, The Return of the Nephilim, which is about the offspring of the fallen angels, and Digging for the Truth, which is a journal about finding Noah, his journal on the adventure at Mount Ararat. And he appeared in other films, including Jurassic, Finding Noah, of course, Watchers 8, Footprints in Stone, Forbidden History 2. He's participated in dinosaur excavations, excavating 15 different dinosaurs, 2 of which were woolly mammoths. He's credited with mapping the longest contiguous dinosaur trackway in the Western Hemisphere and discovered a new trail of dinosaur tracks named the Judkins Trail back in 2000. He's also been featured on international radio and TV broadcasts, including Coast to Coast with George Noory and the History Channel's H2, and I don't know if you're still doing this, Aaron, but I know, a host of the radio show on Epic Voyagers Radio. He was involved in exploration of the 12th cage of Qumran in search of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and also is a flight medic, firefighter, paramedic, and a musician, and most recently has come out with his own cologne. So very, very long laundry list of accomplishments, and I'm thrilled to be able to have him on here tonight. Aaron, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Hi, Maggie. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm very honored to be on a guest on your show tonight.
Well, thank you so much again. I'd like to start out by asking you, what drew you to archaeology? What made you decide that you wanted to be an archaeologist?
You know, I've always had an interest in history, but when I was a little boy, I was interested in rocks. My grandparents were rock hounds, and so I would go out with them sometimes, and my grandfather had a rock saw, and he would cut those rocks in half and polish them, and those rocks were just incredibly beautiful on the inside. You know, if you ever saw agate rock on the outside, and agate is real rough, and it's kind of gray, doesn't have any kind of color to it. You would just think there was nothing to that rock, but once you cut it open, man, those agate rocks are just beautiful. And when you polish them, they have all kinds of color in it. Sometimes they have these crystals, and sometimes they're just, have these colors in them that just pop out. So I was always interested in just finding things. That gave me a sense of adventure when I was young. I loved just studying the history of where I was at, what happened here at this place. And, so these, I think these adventures when I was young really played naturally into the role of archaeology, because that's the study of ancient cultures. And when I was, I guess in about 1996 or 97, somewhere in there, I had volunteered at one of my local museums to do some archaeological work. And I had seen an NBC special that came on TV. It was called The Mysterious Origins of Man. It was hosted by Charlton Heston. And that show came on, and it featured some of the artifacts that was in the museum in my local town. And it blew me away, because I had just been down there to see those artifacts, and here it was on an NBC special on TV. And it really questioned the origins of mankind. So I just began this, search on, what all these out of place artifacts were, and how it impacted the science, and what it meant to my philosophy of life, and how that impacted me. And so the archaeology really came about later on for me, but I began to go on some digs. And in 2004, I was invited to go to dig at the new discovery at the time at the Pool of Siloam in Jerusalem. And this is where they found the original pool where it was in the old city of David back in the biblical times. And so this was an historic find. It was amazing. And so I was a part of that dig. And I just decided, man, I just love this. I love digging history, and because history and these artifacts tell a story. So that's really how I got involved in archaeology. And from there, I've been on digs around the world.
Wow, that's a fascinating story. It's amazing to me. What do you think was your favorite adventure?
Oh my goodness, my favorite adventure. They're all my favorite adventures. I love them all. I don't know. I guess my favorite one is always my last one. And because that's just, it always seems to be, something that's always, I guess, fascinating for me. And it always leads me around the world. I find myself in a different part of the world sometimes. And so, I think the funnest dig is probably the Dead Sea Scroll cave in Qumran that I was a part of back just in the first part of this year, back in January. And this is a place in Qumran in Israel, where they found the Dead Sea Scrolls in these caves, in 11 caves between 1947 and 1957. And this was such a huge dig because it was the first time any cave in Qumran had been excavated in over 60 years. And so this is a really fun dig because we ended up finding like some really major cultural material in that cave. And so for me, that was one of the fun digs because it's like hitting a grand slam in a baseball game. I mean, you just, as an archaeologist, digs like this just does not happen where you find, some major important finds. A lot of times it's bits and fragments and tiny pieces of things. And this particular dig, we really hit some good Dead Sea cultural scroll material that dated back thousands of years old.
That's insane. That's so amazing to me. I can't imagine how you must have felt being there and discovering the artifacts that you were able to discover there. How is the progress going with that, by the way? Are they still testing some of the things that you were able to unearth there? Have they pretty much finished their studies?
Yeah, we haven't published yet. This is a very recent dig. Sometimes it takes a while to process all those artifacts and then get anything published. The main leaders of the dig who were involved with that on the Israeli side through Hebrew University will be doing that along with Dr. Randall Price, who co-directed the dig out of Liberty University. So lots of work being done. Yes, we are still testing some things. We have some things that we can make public now. I tell you, when we first came onto some of these artifacts that we were finding, it was really tight security around that dig because of the implications of what we were finding. So
I imagine so. Yeah.
Yeah. So some of these things are now public, and I have all kinds of artifacts that I could tell you about. But we found a number of Dead Sea Scroll cultural material artifacts, which means that in these particular caves around Qumran, this is on the northwest side of the Dead Sea, where the Essenes fled from Roman persecution, from the Roman rule in Jerusalem. And we think that the Essenes, which is a group of people who left Jerusalem, who basically went to the wilderness. I mean, Qumran is wilderness. There is just it's very harsh conditions out there. And of course, the Dead Sea is very salty. It's the lowest place on earth. And there's absolutely no way you can drink the water. But they lived out there. It's just amazing to me how they did that. But this is the community that wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls and hid these scrolls in 11 caves. Now there's hundreds of caves in this area. We had permission to excavate one cave for one particular time frame. And in this one cave, we were able to discover, as we went back through the cave floor, we also discovered a tunnel in the back room of the cave, which ended up being it's like 30 feet back up in there. And they had carved out niches in the side of the wall where they put these scrolls. Now they housed the scrolls in scroll jars. And this particular pottery was made only in Qumran, from the clay in Qumran. It's a very thin pottery. It wasn't used for cooking or eating or anything like that. It just was to house the scrolls. So we know the particular pottery. And when we got back up in that tunnel and excavated through that tunnel, it took us a long time to get that tunnel excavated. But we started finding remnants of jars where they had been stored. Not only that, we found the remnants of the textiles. So the textiles are a fine linen cloth that they would wrap the scrolls around, and then they would store them in these jars. We found not only that, but we found the leather strings in some cases where they tied the scrolls.
Wow.
With the leather string. So a lot of artifacts that were associated with this particular cave, but in one of the back rooms that we also found in this particular cave, it was the first time ever that we had documented a scroll inside of a scroll jar. It was a small scroll. It wasn't one of the large ones like the Great Isaiah Scroll, but it was a small one. And the roof had collapsed on that side of the cave, and it crushed the jar, but the scroll was still in there. We're still testing that scroll. We don't know if it has writing on it. We can't see anything visibly, and you don't unroll it right away. You do a lot of the test as it is before you get to the point of unrolling it. So we're able to look at these things and take it back to Hebrew University to study these things. We're hopeful it does have writing, but if it doesn't, it's still a very, very significant find.
Absolutely. It's just, again, incredible stories. The whole idea of it fascinates me, especially as it relates to the biblical narrative. You know, that's something that I'm really interested in. And I find it so fascinating that you were able to do something like this. How did you get considered for this particular trip?
Well, it goes back to Finding Noah. You mentioned that early on in the introduction. Finding Noah was a documentary film. It went out in theaters in 2015. It was the largest documentary film released in theaters at the time. It chronicles our expedition up Mount Ararat in eastern Turkey in 2013 in one of the last great searches for Noah's Ark. And so this film is now available for you to watch. It was in Walmart for a long time, but I think it's still on Amazon and some other places. But anyway, this film was one of the biggest expeditions I've been on. There was a lot of scientists on the team, two of which, Dr. Randall Price and Bruce Hall, who were with me in this particular search for Noah's Ark. Dr. Price was the director of the Qumran plateau dig for the last 10 years. And the plateau is actually where the community lived. The caves were up, behind them, and they're scattered naturally. Most are natural, some are carved out of the sand there. But Dr. Price was the Qumran director there. And when he got permission to excavate a cave in Qumran, which is near the vicinity of the original caves there that my colleague who was in the film with me, Bruce Hall, who climbed Mount Ararat, called me up and said, "Hey, we're putting together a team to excavate a cave in Qumran. Are you interested?" And of course, Dr. Price accepted me on the team. It was a very elite team. Look, there was scholars and other archaeologists who did not get on this team. I mean, it was very difficult to get on the team, and I was very honored to be able to serve on that team with Dr. Price. Several of us from Finding Noah, Dr. Price, Bruce Hall, and Dr. Price's son were all in on this dig in Qumran. So there were several of us there working together. But Dr. Price was the co-director of the Qumran cave dig, and he was working side by side with the Israeli Antiquity Authority, with Dr. Oren Gutfeld, who held the dig permit to excavate. So this was one of the, probably, I say the last dig is the funnest dig, but actually it was probably the most important excavation I've ever been on. The significance and the impact of the Dead Sea Scrolls are huge to Israel's history, and it really impacts the biblical narrative, because this is, again, when you have an artifact coming out of the ground that's thousands of years old, well, that tells a story. But when it has writing on it, or when it has an association with the material culture of the time, well, that is really one of the best artifacts and best finds as an archaeologist you could ever find, because that artifact is filling in the gap of history that we may have not known about, or it adds to the knowledge that we already know about. So this was really, really probably the most important dig I've been on.
Again, it's just amazing to me. I'm sitting here listening to you. I'm getting chills just thinking about the prospect of that and how exciting it had to have been for you. Wow. Would you say Mount Ararat was probably your most challenging adventure, right?
Oh, no question about it. It was. If you see the film Finding Noah, I have copies that I sign autographed copies for folks. If you want to go on my website to order one, but once you find such a challenging mountain, that I knew it was going to be hard, but I didn't really realize how challenging it was going to push me to my limits. That last 3,000 feet, between 14,000 and 17,000, was just almost straight up. And our director of photography of the film, who had climbed Everest, told me Everest is obviously higher, but he told me that Mount Ararat was actually a more dangerous mountain than Everest ever is. Not really because of the altitude. The altitude is still very high, but it's because of what Everest doesn't have, and that's huge boulders and loose rocks and electricity, the electricity on the mountain, and the storms that hit every afternoon. You don't have those problems on Everest. Now, you can have lightning strikes, but it doesn't have static electricity around those rocks like Mount Ararat does. You have wild dogs, and you have, just these crevasses. Obviously, you have crevasses on Everest, but Everest is really frozen pretty solid. And in some cases, Mount Ararat can have melting glacier. And so it's very, very difficult to climb. When I was on the summit, and the film crew asked me, they said, "Hey, would you ever come back up here?" And I said, "Man, don't ask me right now, because the answer is probably no." But I would go back, knowing what I know now, because I know the challenge. I know that I can do it. It just pushed me to my limit. To be honest, you'll see in the film, there was a point that I just didn't know if I was going to be able to make it. But you kind of reach those challenges in life, and then you just, you put one foot in front of the other, and you just climb that mountain in baby steps. And that's what I did. And I just pushed myself, through the pain and the misery and the heartache, and really just challenged. And it really was a physical challenge, but more than that, it was more of a mental challenge. And once I got past that, I was so glad that, I accomplished that. But just to get up there to start searching was an accomplishment just for me. So yes, Mount Ararat was very, very difficult.
Blessed are the meek, turn the other cheek, live the golden rule, don't call anyone a fool, and seek ye first the kingdom of the Lord. It was a new way of teaching, no one ever taught before. And now all these things we've heard 1,000 times or more. Nobody takes the time to understand the light of the world, salt of the earth. Care for one another, but don't just love your brother, and don't lay up your treasures on the earth. It was a new way of teaching, no one ever taught before. All these things we've heard 1,000 times or more. Still nobody takes the time to understand. God takes care of the lilies of the field. God takes care of the birds in the sky. Men of little faith who don't have time to wait. Now don't you think he'll do the same for you? You'll find, don't throw your pearls before swine. Who hears these words of mine is like a man who built his house on rock. It was a new way of teaching, no one ever taught before. Now all these things we've heard 1,000 times or more. Nobody takes the time to understand. It was a new way of thinking, no one ever thought before. Now all these things we've heard 1,000 times or more. Still nobody takes the time to understand. Nobody really takes the time to understand.
Yeah, I've seen the trailers. I haven't yet watched the movie. For anybody who's interested, you can go to www.aaronjudkins.com and order a copy of that, and also some videos of some of Aaron's other work. I don't know if there are other social avenues that you like to promote for your work for people to be able to follow you. I think you have a YouTube station too, don't you?
Yeah, it's all centrally located at aaronjudkins.com. And
Okay.
Yeah, that's really the main hub for people to go and follow me, follow the work that I do. Anything that's going on will usually get posted there at aaronjudkins.com.
Mm-hmm. I had seen the trailer and one of the interviews that you had done regarding Ararat and the search for Noah's Ark. And I'm with you. I'm thoroughly convinced, even as a novice, that would be the location in which it lies, right? So what have you, the last article or interview rather that I had seen, you were still testing some of the wood. Is that correct? Have there been any further developments with that?
Well, we were testing some samples that we brought up from the ice core drilling, and those samples were sent off to lab testing. It took a while for us to get that back. The samples ended up being organic, Now, we don't know
Oh.
why there's organic material that high on Mount Ararat. There should not be any organic material up that high. There's no trees, there's no vegetation, there's nothing up there that grows. And so
Right.
we're kind of stumped on that. We actually need more evidence to kind of figure out what that was. But it was organic, and it was animal. We do know that it was a smooth muscle from an animal, and we don't know exactly what that was, but whatever that was, it should not have been up there.
Mm-hmm. And you are convinced that's the site, do you think?
Well, I'm convinced it's on Mount Ararat, yes. Now, there are others, ARC researchers, who say no, it was found in the 70s by Ron Wyatt, and that was 30 miles away across the valley at a site called the Derupinar site. And there's a shape of kind of a triangle shape that looks like a boat that is out there. I went to that site. Matter of fact, several of us went to the site. It's been studied independently by geologists, archaeologists alike. And even back in the 80s, they concluded that that was not a boat. It was not Noah's Ark. It was simply a natural geological formation called a mud uppush. And although it kind of looks like the shape of this ship, it's really not. And you have to understand, there are diehard, supporters of that theory that, that is Noah's Ark. Probably 99.9% of those people had never been to Turkey to see that site directly. I've been there, I've studied it, and it's simply just a natural formation of rock. It's interesting. Was it probably used in history for something? Yes, but it was never a ship. Now, you have to understand Noah's Ark was not a boat anyway. And so for the people who claim for it to be an ark or a boat, Noah's Ark was not a boat. It was not made with a hull and a keel and a rudder, and it was not designed to sail. It was not designed as a ship. It was designed as a life support vessel, and it was a rectangular structure. In the Hebrew, that word is tebah, which means a rectangular box or a chest. And so Noah's Ark was really a life support vessel. It was not meant to sail on the seas and to be steered. It was meant to get in there and ride out the storm. And so that's exactly what the description of it is and throughout history. But yes, we do feel like that it's on Mount Ararat. I think there's a good chance it's on that mountain. I guess the logical question that I get asked all the time is, well, why can't you just go up there and find it? It's not that easy. Mount Ararat is one of the largest land masses on Earth, and there's hundreds of square miles of just terrain that you cannot get access to in a lot of cases. On the north side of the mountain is the Ahor Gorge. It's twice as deep as the Grand Canyon. There's cliffs that are thousands of foot deep or tall that you just there's no way to access it from the top or the bottom. And if the ark was on that side of the mountain, which we think it probably was in 1840, there was an earthquake in the region. It caused Mount Ararat, which is a volcano type mountain, to erupt, and it blew out what we call the Ahor Gorge today. And so it really created a very dangerous area on that north side of the mountain. So it's just not a matter of just climbing up there to find it. It's permanently iced on the summit and on that side from about 13,500 feet and up. There's permanent ice glaciers up there. And of course, on that one particular side, it's almost death to try to get access. Matter of fact, they lost a Scottish climber a couple of years before we climbed. That he was climbing solo, unfortunately, and he was never found alive again. We don't know what happened to him. We don't know if he fell through a crevasse or fell off the Ahor Gorge. we don't know. But there's been several climbers. Matter of fact, as you're climbing towards the summit, there's a plaque that you pass, and it has the names of about 50 people on that plaque. And those are all people who never made it past that point, and they all died. And so it's not a plaque that you want your name on, so it's a very dangerous mountain. But yes, I do think the art's there, and I think the work eventually will continue.
Wow, that again is amazing. And absolutely, I would assume it had to be a journey of faith. Watching your expression at one part of one of the outtakes of the movie, when you said, "I'm freezing," I could feel, the emotion coming through, the desperation, just being probably, as you best expressed it, at the end of your rope, ready to give up, but then having the faith to keep going and pull through. You also mentioned that when you were at one of your lowest points, one of the guys directed you to look back down the mountain and you saw the shadow. And that is pretty much what drove you to continue, right? To keep going, to have the strength to keep going.
It was.
Wow.
I didn't climb that mountain by myself. There's sometimes in life where you just want to give up and you can't even feel like you can go on. And, you get that one person in your life that will reach out to help you and to walk, through that challenge with you. And that's what, Bill and Will Hughes did. They are a father-son team that's climbed that mountain before me. And we three summited before the rest of the archaeology crew or the film crew even. We went up as a three-man team in advance to set up camp on the summit. And those guys really could have just left me behind easily. But they went at my pace, and they just encouraged me to keep going. And so one of the times that I had stopped, because you start about you get up about 2 a.m. or so, 1:30, 2 a.m. You're on the trail at 3 a.m. with your headlamps starting up to the summit. And about, I don't know what time it was. It must have been 6:30 or 7 a.m. somewhere up there. We were around 15,000 feet probably. And the sun had just started to crest over Mount Ararat. And they told me to turn around and look down on the valley floor. And the shadow of Mount Ararat was down on the valley floor. It was the shadow. And that was so inspiring for me. I took a minute and I thought, Aaron, look at where you're at, and look at where you're, what you're doing. It's just a short ways further. You just can't give up now. You just got to keep going. And so that little bit gave me the inspiration to keep pushing forward and accomplish really the mission of the whole mission. And that was to get up there to even start searching for the Ark. And so that was really, I think, one of the pivotal moments in the film for me is, hey, I can do this, and we're gonna do it together. So that was really one of the inspiring moments in the film for me.
Wow. And I imagine your brotherhood that you form with these gentlemen will probably last your lifetime.
It is. Well, when you start climbing on a mountain like that, your lives are in each other's hands, and
exactly.
You have to depend on the guy next to you. So, there were several times that, I reached out to study one of the guys that was up on the summit. You just have to look out for each other up there, because that's all you have, and you really find out what you're made of. But you also find out that the bond that when you go through a challenge like that, it doesn't matter if you're climbing a mountain or if you're in combat in the trenches, with the guy next to you. It doesn't matter if you're running a marathon and whatever it is, those challenges, you go through them, and usually you're going through them with someone that's with you, and that just creates a bond that when you get through the other side of that challenge, you're thinking, man, I didn't give up on that, and I just kept going, but I didn't do it by myself. And this was I think that I think the most incredible thing I came back with from Mount Ararat was that, matter of fact, when I came down from I descended. It took me a week to climb the mountain, and I descended the mountain in one day. Going down is actually harder than going up. It's more impactful on your knees and your joints and things like this. But I came off the mountain in one day. It took me about 12 hours from the summit, went all the way down, and then walked about 5 miles to the pickup vehicle. But when I turned around and saw the mountain and what I had just climbed and then climbed down from, I thought this was just, a challenge that I was so glad that I was able to do, because now I can look forward and think, man, if I can go through that, I can go through the next challenge, right? So that's kind of the way I thought of it, and I took something, from that with me, and I'll always remember that.
Again, a very, very cool, inspirational story. Absolutely. I would think if you did that, you could do virtually anything that you set your mind to. And it's a testament to human will and faith and, the trust that you would have on others. That's just amazing to me. I do have one question for you that's been eating at me. Because you've done the excavation of dinosaurs and you're also a Christian, I guess I would kind of want to call you a creation archaeologist. I don't know if that would be entirely accurate, but how would you correlate dinosaurs' existence to the Bible? Would you say that they existed maybe 6,000 years ago, they're not as old as what the evolutionists or other thought processes would have us believe from your studies? Did they exist in Eden? Were there young ones on the ark, would you think? Questions like that. Do you think that they perished in the flood? Are they the behemoths spoken of in the Bible in Job? Right. Where God describes to Job, the creatures with the tails like cedar trees? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the accurate term is biblical archaeologist. I do happen to believe in a creation event that's described in Genesis. That didn't come until later on in life for me. I didn't quite understand the impact of the what the Bible said about creation and what I was taught as a student in public school about evolution. I never could reconcile those two views because I got two separate stories. But it wasn't until I really got out in the field and started digging and started learning about these things for myself that I realized that what I had been taught wasn't matching up with what I found as an archaeologist. The story that we've all heard is that dinosaurs died out 65 million years ago and weren't around back in Noah's time. We see this, again and again, that the dinosaurs ruled the earth 140 million years ago, died out 65 million years ago. But as a Christian, as a biblical archaeologist, there is a story that is completely different than the story that we've all been taught about dinosaurs. But the story is matching up with the actual science that we see in the field of paleontology. It doesn't really tell us exactly how long ago that was, but the Bible does say in Exodus 28 that God made everything in 6 days. This goes back to the question of time and how old is the earth. And we probably don't have enough time to get into that, but we were told that the creation week was an evening, that the evening and the morning was day one, the evening and the morning was day two. So, and the Hebrew word uses the word yom, Y-O-M, which means a literal solar day. And so we see that, and then if we go back to the genealogies of the Bible from Adam to Christ, and we go and we count all those genealogies out, that we can conclude that there was those genealogies only go out several thousand years. So what about dinosaurs on the ark? Well, in Genesis 6:19, it says that the two of every animal went on the ark, but 7 of the clean animals went on the ark. So were dinosaurs on the ark? I believe yes, because it says 2 of every unclean animal, 7 of the clean animals, and that would include dinosaurs. In Job chapter 40, God's talking to Job, which we think Job is the oldest book in the Bible, and he's describing a creature called Behemoth, and he says, "Behold now Behemoth, which I made with thee. He eats grass like an ox. He drinks up the river Jordan. He has a tail like a cedar tree, and he is the chief of the ways of God." And so we do think that dinosaurs were on the ark. You don't have to have large adults. The average size of an animal, we think there was about 17,500 kinds of animals. You don't need 2 of every dog. You just need 2 of the kind of dog. You need 2 of the kind of, of the elephant kind. You need 2 of the kind, of the feline kind. So you don't need 2 of every species. You need 2 of the kinds. And so mathematicians have looked at that, and they said about 17,500 kinds of animals that represented the animals. 2 of the uncleans went on, 7 of the clean animals. We think that that the average size of those animals was about the size of a sheep. So all you need is a juvenile, young dinosaur that would go on. You need a pink one and a blue one to make it work. And but yes, we think dinosaurs were on the ark. Why? Because even after the flood, even in Native American culture and in their pictographs and petroglyphs, we see that there is depictions of dinosaurs that go back post-flood. And so how did they know what a dinosaur looked like? How were they able to draw dinosaurs on if they'd never seen one? I think there's plenty of evidence of the medieval times. They were called dragons. There was no such term as a dinosaur until about 1840 when Sir Richard Owen coined the term dinosaur. Before that, they were known as dragons. And there's plenty of dragon legends throughout every culture, usually around the world. So I do think dinosaurs were on the ark because of the cultural history that's been reported about dragons. And so we see that there's a lot of these kinds of animals that were represented on the ark. There's a site in Göbekli Tepe. You probably heard about that in Turkey. They think it's a religious site, but there are animals depicted on these stone structures that are not indigenous to Turkey. And so as an archaeologist, I have to ask myself, why are there depicting animals that are not indigenous to Turkey? And I think it was because this was a couple of generations after the flood from Noah. And as they migrated, they ended up in this is about 500 miles from Mount Ararat. And I think within a couple of generations, they built Göbekli Tepe as a memorial to the flood and the animals, and they depicted these animals in bas relief. If you're an artist, bas relief is BAS, which means that it's kind of like in a three-dimensional shape that they carved out of the stone, but it's raised, a raised relief of it. But these animals are depicted on these stone carvings, and I think they did that as a reminder of what they came out of, what their grandfather Noah came out of, as a remembrance for the flood and the animals. So we see that there's a lot that I can't touch on now because of time's sake, but there is a lot of information about Noah's flood, a global catastrophe in the past, dinosaurs, etc. And that's part of really what some of my work has been about. Really, Maggie, has been about dinosaurs, about the age of the earth, what archaeology shows, what it doesn't show. Matter of fact, I'm going to be in a film that's coming out next month called Scientism Exposed. And this is going to talk a lot about the creation versus evolution, argument. And it's going to be out on November 20th. It's going to be a pretty cool film, I think. It's if you go to celebratetruth.org, you can see the trailer up for that now. This is going to be part 2. You'll see the Maverick archaeologist here in that film in November.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'm so thrilled to hear you say that, because that's always been my feeling on the topic, is that they were on the ark, and also the behemoth, that was most likely a dinosaur. The dragon is interesting to me too. That was a thought that had occurred to me previously, although because I do so much with spiritual warfare, part of me leans toward dragons may have been how some of the fallen angels may have presented themselves to humankind at some point. I don't know how you feel about that.
I would love to talk to you about that. That's another area of interest that I've had. I wrote a book on that called Alien Agenda: The Return of the Nephilim, and I write about that topic. Actually, I've been very interested in the topic of giants from an archaeological point of view. There's just so much information out there about it. But yes, I think that there was the Nephilim. And that is probably a whole nother show probably there, but I would love to do another show, because I'm fascinated with that. And I've been actually shown some things during prayer that, not to interrupt you, but I get so excited about the topic, because some of the things that I've been shown in prayer, when guys like L.A. Marzulli, and I think you know him, right? You've done shows with him maybe? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I was in Watchers 8 with L.A.
Watchers 8, that's right, yeah. When I come out and when I hear stories of some of the things that they're discovering with these Nephilim skulls, it lines up with some of the things that I was shown. And so I get giddy about it. I get chills. I could talk for hours. I would love, if you're able to be able to do at least one more show with you at some point. It would just thrill me to be able to discuss that with you further.
Yeah, I would love to.
Just amazing. Wow. Thank you so much for coming on today, for taking the time out. I know how busy you are. And I really, really appreciate the opportunity for you speaking with me today and telling us so many wonderful stories about your adventures and the things that you've discovered. Is there anything that you'd like to say in closing to promote some of your books and some of your work? I know that you've mentioned your website. Pretty much everything is centralized on there.
Right.
Is there anything that you're particularly proud of? Finding Noah, I would recommend everything that you have to everyone. Oh, can we talk about the cologne? You've actually got a cologne coming out. That's another cool thing.
Yeah, it's not out just yet, but I do little things here and there, and just you never know about me, but I thought I would give it a try just to see what it would do. But yeah, it's a you can go on the site, and I don't know that I have the cologne up on the site yet. Actually, it's just brand new, but it's kind of the Maverick cologne, where it's got a couple of scents in it that I handpicked out that you could wear. It's actually a unisex cologne, so it can be worn outside every day in the office. So anyway, I'm kind of looking forward to that. Actually, it's kind of a new thing that I'm doing, but yeah, the Finding Noah was certainly a big thing for me. You can still find the film trailers up. I think it's still up at findingnoah.com, and you can see the trailers up there still. You can go to my site, aaronjudkins.com, and certainly follow my work there. All the social media hubs are up there as well. And like I said, if you want a personal copy of Finding Noah, or if you want an autographed book, I'd be glad to do that. Just contact me through my website, and I'd be glad to autograph something and send it out to you. And then, like I said, the Scientism Exposed film, which is a part 2, is coming out in November. And I've got one other thing coming out. I don't know when yet, but it's going to be called the Dino Hunter series. It's going to be hosted by Jeremy McLaughlin. And as soon as I get information on that, I will be sending that out as well. So you never know about me, but I'm planning on being back in the Middle East in 2018, doing some further digs. But I just welcome everybody to follow me on Facebook. You can go to Man vs. Archaeology on Facebook, type that in, and there's a Facebook page there, and you can follow me there or on my personal site as well. So.
Wow. Yeah, I want a copy for sure. Thank you so much. I feel honored that you would even offer that. That's amazing that you would do that for people. Thank you so much for coming on today and taking the time out and again, just being able to share your stories with us. It's been a fascinating ride, and I hope to do it again with you soon. Thanks so much, Aaron.
Yeah, you're absolutely welcome. It was my honor, and thanks for taking the time out of your day, everyone, to listen to the old maverick archaeologist here.
So there you go, folks. Dr. Aaron Judkins, biblical archaeologist. And as you found out this evening, the wearer of many, many successful hats. I wish him continued success in all that he does. I'm really looking forward to having him on future shows to talk about Nephilim, giants, dragons, whatever topic that we choose to discuss in the future. I'm sure that it will be very interesting, and it's totally in line with my thought processes. I love to talk about this kind of thing, and I hope that you love to hear about this type of topic matter, because you won't hear it on mainstream media, but there's much to learn. And, we'd like to just throw out our opinions to you and let you decide what's real. My opening and closing music, as always, was provided by my buddy Pat Carr. He's a great guy, originally from Louisiana. I love his stuff. The intermission song as well tonight, A New Way of Thinking, was provided by Pat. I'm very, very appreciative of the opportunity to be able to share his music with you. Please check him out on SoundClick, and you can also reach him at pwcar@cartoons.com. He's a wonderful guy. Please support him, and thank you so much for listening. Next week, we'll return with a new episode with my co-host, Ira, of the Positude podcast. So that's another fun one that we do. If you haven't checked that out, please check it out. Please also go to YouTube and subscribe to my station. Right now, I'm not in the search bar. There's another Maggie Heart that pops up. She does beauty and makeup or something like that. But if you type in the keyword Positude in the YouTube search bar, some of my shows will come up, and you can go ahead and go in that way and subscribe, because for some reason, I'm not searchable on YouTube. So please do that if you enjoy listening to the shows, and you can check out some of the past episodes of Passages and Prophecy and PowWow on there. And the newer episodes where we use the original music for Positude podcast will be showing up on there pretty soon as well. I have a ton of them we have to upload. I just haven't had the time. So thanks again all for listening. Have a great night, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.